Yeah? Yeah. You are? Welcome to another episode of the Carmudgeon Show. Carmudgeon? Take two. Welcome to another episode of Name That Tune. Okay. Do you want to lead the glamorous life? Doesn't mean
Do I know?
to.
No. Do I? Is this?
She's got big hopes, big dreams, and a big brown Mercedes sedan.
Someone
She
actually
wants
sang
to
that?
live-
Like
yeah.
about Brown?
Yes, Milan Brown.
When Brown was cool?
Glamorous life, it ain't love without love. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Carmudgeon Show. My name is Jason something, Singer Camisa, and this is Derek Tam hyphen, I don't know anything about songs, Scott. I fucked that up. Anyway, there was a song in the 1980s, it was called Glamorous Life, and there was a line in there, big hopes, big dreams, and a big brown Mercedes sedan, which is kind of amazing, but you know what she didn't say?
Where are you going?
She didn't say a big brown Geländewagen.
Yeah, because if you'd said that, nobody would have known what it was.
It was out when that song existed.
Not in the U.S.
Is the sign of glamour is not a fucking SUV, it's a sedan.
Wasn't an SUV in 1980, whatever year that you hypothesized that this song might have existed.
I would love for us to buy. We need to start buying the rights to this music, so we can put it in as an insert, so people can believe me that
These songs actually are real, and that it's not just you making up stuff.
That line is amazing because I have a friend with a Milan Brown 1978 300 SD, and of course, every time he pulls up, we're like, she's got big hopes, big dreams, and a big brown Mercedes sedan.
But not a lot of horsepower. That
was the fastest diesel-powered.
That's like being the smartest kid on the short bus.
That's offensive.
You're offensive. But the point, the point is the fastest diesel has 113 horsepower and it's an S-Class. That means 0 to 60 in 14 seconds.
No, I think it was faster than that, 13.5. And more importantly, the most elegant SUV in the world is nowhere near as elegant as a sedan. So I think we should do an episode.
That's not the purpose of an SUV, at least not in my eyes.
Was it the purpose of a sedan is to be elegant and brown?
Yeah.
I mean, anything in brown would be more elegant.
Yeah, I'd love a 6.9 in brown.
That Quattroporte in brown would be amazing.
Yeah. I absolutely agree.
Actually, any one of those cars. Can you imagine the Lusso, the GTC in brown, a 355 in brown, 355 brown?
It would be okay, but that dark blue is wonderful.
Yeah, is that TDF?
Blue Pozzi.
Blue Pozzi, what does Pozzi mean?
It's the last name of a guy named Charles Pozzi, who, you asked me the answer to the question.
No, I'm not rolling my eyes at you. Technically I've rolled my eyes at you, but I'm rolling my eyes at the lack of creativity. I was hoping it was like blue balls or blue.
No, it's a dude who sold Ferraris in France. He was the distributor for Ferraris in France.
Story. I wanted something cooler than that. I'm sorry. Do you own any SUVs?
I do not. Do you?
I have never.
I have. You owned a truck.
A pickup.
Yeah.
That's not an SUV.
Correct.
That's a truck. That's for men. I drove a really butch pickup truck.
How many cylinders did it have?
4, but it was the big block.
How many horsepower?
90. I think 85, 90. It was a 2.3 liter. It was in a Suzuki Pop, but that's not the point. My point is an SUV. I want you to tell me about your previous SUV ownership, mostly so I can make fun of you because you're a fucking heathen for having bought one. And then I want to talk about the SUVs that we want to own, because I'm curious.
You want to own an SUV? That shocks me. You've never owned an SUV, but you want to own an SUV.
I've never owned a V12, but I want to own a V12. Is that a problem for you?
No, I think you should own a V12.
Just because misery loves company?
Because David E. Davis said every person should own a V12 power car.
If I had to buy a
Not
V12,
just because David E. Davis said it, but because he was right.
He was a cunt most of the time, but he was right about that. I would own an E31 850 CSI, is at the top of the list of the V12 cars. And then right below it is the world's shittiest W140 600 SEL, so I can put the straight pipes on it from those videos, which if you haven't seen, we're going to put a clip in because it's the most amazing thing in the world, but all you have to do is put equal length headers on a V12 and it sounds like a fucking Enzo.
No, it sounds better.
Ooh. You'll see for yourself in the insert that we're going to put probably right here.
Yeah.
better than an Enzo. You're right. Okay. So, what?
You wouldn't own a V12 Ferrari of some description?
Oh yeah, 412, 400i.
Yes.
Totally.
400. I would maybe even want the carburetors because I like listening to Webers.
Here's the thing. I just thought of something. One of the 4 SUVs that I want to own is a V12.
Yes, as it should be.
Okay. And it's
we're
not
getting
a G65, but that
we're getting ahead of ourselves. Oh yes, that is the other V12 SUV. There's only one in my mind. When you said G65, I remembered that it existed, but that wasn't.
Is there another? Yes, there is another. There was a V12 Tdi Audi Q7.
Oh, that's true.
And a 12-cylinder diesel.
And a W12 Touareg was also available, but that's not
Gas.
a V12. Correct.
I mean, it is technically. Is it a V12? It has 2 cylinder heads as a W.
Okay.
So I could argue that it's a 12-cylinder.
Yes.
I don't think David E. Davis actually meant it has to have a V12. I think he was saying.
So he would have been okay with a Ferrari Boxer.
Yeah, a 12-cylinder car is what I think he meant.
Okay.
And mostly, I think the whole point of owning a 12-cylinder car is the starter sound.
That's important.
Doesn't do the wom 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 boom. Anyway, tell me about your SUV so we can hate you, and by we I mean me and our audience collectively can all make fun of your choices.
Land Rover.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that. I can't make fun of that.
Defender.
Yes, I can.
I had a Defender and I had a Range Rover, and then
Okay. I thought there was only one SUV, and I basically engineered this episode so I can shit on you the whole time. All right, so you had a Defender? Which one?
90 US V8.
Damn it, okay.
With a manual.
Fuck, that's really cool.
Short wheelbase station
That's
wagon.
really, really
with
cool.
the side-facing seats in the
Damn
in
you!
the luggage area.
Damn you, okay.
And then I had an L322, a BMW engined Range Rover. That's like it was an 03.
How was that?
I enjoyed operating it, but it was very costly to keep going.
I have a friend who bought one of those. He was at the dealership. One of my oldest friends, actually my oldest surviving friend in the world, because I keep killing them. He called me. He's like, "Dude,
we'll just gloss over that." And
whatever. This is a happy show. I'm not going to talk about, as you get older,
all the
your
people
friends
you've
all start
killed.
dying.
Oh,
They die
you
off.
said you killed them. That's different from them dying.
I mean, this is small difference. Whatever. No, but he was at the dealer. Like, dude, I'm buying a Rover, and I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. Like, do not buy one. So I talked him into, instead of buying a new one, to buy a certified pre-owned, because it was half the price of the new one and had a better warranty. And he created an album on Facebook called My Off-Road Vehicle. And the first thing he did was shoot a picture of it on the beach, looking fucking amazing, because that was like such a gorgeous truck, on the sand. And it's like, hey, look at my off-road vehicle, it's off the road. Over the course of the next 3 years, he continually uploaded photos to the album of his off-road vehicle with the caption of, when I called this thing my off-road vehicle, I didn't realize that it meant off the road. And all the pictures were of it on a tow truck. And there were many photos.
I think mine was only towed once or twice. I put 7,000 miles on it. I bought it at 40,000 miles and I sold it at 47,000 miles. And I think I only had to have it towed once.
What broke?
The alternator bearing. So it started making a very
high-pitched squeezy.
It was more of a groany, gravelly noise.
But it hasn't seized yet. You're fine.
It was definitely suboptimal. And then I had and then I sold that and bought a Cayenne Turbo.
See, the whole episode was basically arranged around the fact that I can call you a douche for owning a Cayenne Turbo, because I don't really approve of that.
I didn't really like it. I thought I was going to like it. The purpose was to replace the Range Rover and the 500e with a single vehicle, my first Mercedes 500e, so I wanted something that was fast but also had usefulness to it. Okay. And it was fine, and I think I put brake pads on it, and that was it. So and I sold it for what I paid for it, and I put 4,000 miles on it. I bought it with 33,000 miles and sold it with 37,000 miles, and I put brake pads on it.
You make these whole arguments and you talk about the whole thing, and then suddenly my argument falls apart and you don't seem like that much of an asshole. But there'll be something in there that I can put. No, I mean,
I mean, it did have a tinted front windshield, and it had black 21-inch wheels. Neither of which, the black wheels were original to the car, and they were like a $6,000 option. The sticker price was $116,000 for this thing.
What year was it?
It was an '08. So it was the direct injected one, and I paid $36 for it and sold it for $36. And I had it for like 9 months or something before I sold it because I wanted to buy I think I bought a 911. I bought an air-cooled 911 with the same money.
So you bought a real Porsche in exchange for your Porsche branded Volkswagen with...
I mean, to be fair, at the same time, I had a 964 that was all hot rodded, so I like was a real Porsche person throughout. I just replaced, I know, the SUV, the Range Rover with the Cayenne Turbo. But yeah, I didn't love it. It was fast, but it wasn't very interesting or fun, and I actually preferred driving the Range Rover. I don't even know why, because the Range Rover was very slow. But I after all that, I was like, I don't need an SUV, and so now I've had station wagons ever since.
I approve of that decision, first of all. I love Range Rovers. I love the fact that they are what they are.
Yeah, there's an authenticity to the Land Rover product, which I really appreciate in the same way that Porsche's, like sports cars, are the same thing where they, very Porsche.
You gonna say that about the 992? Is that really a sports car anymore? Because it's not.
So the 992 must be some kind of new car that has come out at some point in the recent memory.
On or about your 95th birthday. Yes. The 992 replaced the 991, which replaced the 997, which replaced the 996, which replaced the 911 that you know of as the 911, otherwise known as the 993.
Yes, right. So Porsche historically has been well known for making driver-oriented cars, and Ferrari Porsche is famous for having said something along the lines of, we don't want to make something for everyone, we want to make something that's everything to someone. And that was certainly true back in the day, less so now as they've decided for some reason they would like to be profitable. So
that decision ruins every single car company ever.
Except for the fact that they have continued to exist and have blessed us with things like the 991 GT3 Touring, or with a manual transmission.
You do know what a 993 is.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I will say that.
So if they're allowed to make cool shit like that because they have sold many Cayennes to large numbers of housewives, then I'm philosophically willing to forgive that transgression. How
very mature and well
charitable.
Charitable. No, you're totally right.
You're looking
I
for.
will say that the 991 GT3s don't exist as part of Porsche's amazing ability to make sports cars. They exist despite Porsche's current ability to make very heavy, very isolated luxury Panamera coupes.
I think it's both. Because in spite of, like, in terms of their engineering, like, momentum, but also because of they would have gone out of business had they not adapted to the market and expanded their, like, ability to make cars that are profitable and sell them in large enough numbers so that they have enough play money left over to...
I'm not really just talking, I'm not talking about Panamera and Cayenne. I'm really talking about the fact that the 911 keeps getting bigger and more isolated. And those cars are fine to drive. They're amazing at the limit, but they're not actually driver's cars in the way that the GT cars are, like even the GT4 Cayman and the GT3s and GT2s. But anyway, all semantics. I actually think the first generation Cayenne was an abortion of interior quality. I think taking
it's pretty ugly also.
It's horrible. It
but
looks like a frog.
But to be fair, I think the Touareg on which it is based is kind of a cool truck.
Yeah, but this is my problem with it. The Touareg comes out, it looks good, it drove fairly well, fundamentally good sound engineering, had a V10 TDI.
As well as a gas W12 available for European consumption.
Those two things alone sort of check every box. But when Porsche got a hold of it, they made it handle better and they did some other Porsche-y things to it, but then put the shittiest interior ever put in any car ever. And
except for the 996. The 996 I think has a shittier interior.
100%. The 996 is actually like down there with Daewoo's and Daihatsu's and Ladas and but my point is that when Porsche takes a Volkswagen and makes an upmarket version of it, it probably should have an interior that's not horribly worse. That's my real fundamental problem with the Touareg. They figured that out.
You mean the Cayenne?
Yeah. What time is it?
Touran.
Mode Touran.
I'm going to do the rest of this by myself,
Yeah, I'm gonna
apparently,
take a
because
nap.
Jason's ready for his nap time.
We spent a lot of energy moving cars around to make it look like we didn't film the previous episode 2 minutes ago. Oh, I'm a
We're going to have to cut that.
No, that's my fundamental problem with the original Cayenne. That has been fixed. It's actually a really good truck, but I don't think the people who buy it for the reasons that it actually exists, right? Porsche made this truck that does all of these things so well, like handling and whatever, and it's just not being used for that purpose.
But is anything being used by anyone for any purpose? Like, you think about people who buy, I don't know, like a McLaren, and it's like, is that car being used for the purpose for which it is designed,
What
or
is the
it is
purpose for
capable?
which it's designed?
I mean, if you look at its performance capabilities,
Yep.
are people using it for that purpose?
Do you think that's the only reason people buy the McLarens?
Well, it's like, by the same token, are people buying what is the SUV designed to do?
So why are you buying the Porsche version of a Volkswagen product? Is what I'm asking. Versus why are you buying a McLaren? Because there's an argument that I'm buying a McLaren because of the way it looks, the way it makes me feel, the way it sounds, the way it does all of these other things that don't have to do with its performance. But when you're buying an ugly Porsche-fied version of a very good-looking Volkswagen product, I think you're not buying it with the purest of intentions.
Let's discuss the Macan. How does the Macan drive compared to the VW product on which it is based?
That is not a VW product at all, and I highly am insulted, and I'm picturing that scene from Fish Called Wanda, where John Cleese is hanging upside down out of a building and is giving it a complete utter retraction.
Utter retraction and abject apologies, and I will endeavor never to do it again.
All right, I apologize.
You're really sorry.
I'm really, really sorry. I apologize unreservedly.
You take it back.
I do. I offer a complete and utter retraction. The imputation was totally without basis in fact and was in no way fair comment and was motivated purely by malice. And I deeply regret any distress that my comments may have caused you or your family. And I hereby undertake not to repeat any such slander at any time in the future.
Okay.
That's the scene.
I've seen that movie. That's a movie that I...
Coming to kill my Porsche. The Macan is based on an Audi Q5, which is based on the horrible Audi layout where the engines hang in front of the headlights.
Is this a VW product? Isn't that a VW product?
No. Volkswagen is in charge of its like MQB. Every division within Volkswagen has a platform that it's charged with developing. So MQB, for example, the front-wheel drive transverse Golf, that's also used in an Audi A3 and an Audi Q3 and all that other stuff, is a Volkswagen product. The Macan is a Q5, which is an Audi layout product, and that's developed by Audi. And the Q5 drives like, how do I say this nicely? Absolute shit. It drives like complete and utter absolute shit. The steering is terrible, the brakes are terrible, the engines are meh, the transmission programming is awful, the suspension tuning is terrible, seating position's wretched. And then they gave this to Porsche, and they're like, we are very proud of this car. And Porsche threw the whole fucking thing out, except the base layout, and put their own engine, their own transmission, and then their own all-wheel drive system to fix the fundamental Audi problem that you can't ever switch off the front wheels. Moved the seat inboard, so outboard, so it's actually behind the wheel, and then lowered it about 2.5 feet. So you sit properly, the car drives like $1 million, and that is why I highly recommend the Porsche Macan over an Audi Q5, but not necessarily the Cayenne over a Touareg.
You can't even get the Touareg anymore anyway, in the United States.
Why not?
It's not sold here anymore.
Yes,
Isn't that
it
the
is.
Atlas?
No.
I thought they shit-canned the Touareg for the US.
I don't think shit-canned is the term that the product planners used. Volkswagen has bifurcated its product lineup. We have world cars, and then we have US-specific only cars. The Touareg is a world car, which means it's relatively small and relatively expensive, like cars everywhere else in the world. The Atlas is the supersized American thing based on a Golf, bigger than a Touareg, but cheaper and suffers equality for it.
And so the Touareg you can still buy in the United States?
Yep. Unless I've somehow missed something. I mean, it was available last year. And from
I can promise you I haven't been shopping for either.
I can promise you I haven't either. So I'm not going to bet but last time I checked, Touareg was indeed for sale and was going to continue to be for sale. Where it's going to get dicey.
But you may have checked like 3 years ago.
Yeah. In fact, I could probably, forget it. You guys will correct us either way. But the problem is going to be the Atlas Cross Sport or whatever. There's a new shorter version of the Atlas, which will really start stepping on Touareg sales. Like that's starting to get scary because the Atlas is a lot bigger. Anyway, my point is the Q5 / Macan situation is a happy one. That Macan is genuinely a Porsche in the way it drives. And it's very, very different to the Q5 that it's based on. Whereas Touareg and Cayenne, Touareg's good out of the box. Like I don't have any issues with it. Porsche did in the second generation fix the inherent problems.
957. Sorry, 958.
I don't know the chassis codes for these.
The first one was 955. That's the ugly one. Then the facelifted version was called the 957, which is the same car but like with direct injection and
the one you had.
better looking. Yeah, and then they
which you could get in a manual.
Which you could get with a 6-speed manual with the V8 or the V6. And then the one after that was the 958, and that's the one that weighs like 600 pounds less than
that's a good car.
Prior generation.
And it's a decent Porsche, but the one that I like the best of all of the variants of Cayenne was the diesel, the V6 diesel. They softened the suspension, they kind of relaxed the tire choice, and the Porsche engineers were allowed to keep the inherent goodness of the car and not subtract comfort in the name of performance that I don't think most people used. So it was a nice package. It was really good. I would have a diesel Cayenne if I had to have a Cayenne, which I don't, so I won't.
Okay, so what would you have?
There are 4 SUVs on the list of cars that I would / will have. The first one is the one that you probably guessed. Lamborghini.
Yes, the LM002.
LM002.
LM002, but it looks
LM002.
like LM002,
LM002.
which is appropriate because it's kind of the whole bull thing with Lamborghini.
I mean, the car itself, first of all, it's a Countach V12. The later ones, they were Quattro Valvoles, right?
I think they're all Quattro Valvole, and it was available with downdraft carburetors, which is the more powerful variant, or you could get it with a fuel injection.
Which meant that they got the extra bubble on the hood, right?
The carbureted ones have the
ones
bulge because they're downdraft carburetors, so they sit on top of the V12, so there needs to be more clearance.
So let's think about this. Carburetors, 7,000+ RPM V12 with 4-valve per cylinder, dog leg 5-speed manual, Lamborghini repair bills. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. 77-gallon fuel tank, if I remember correctly.
It's something obscene like that, yes.
And it goes on to how like other trivia, like it weighs approximately as much as this whole building. And the coolest part about driving that car is, first of all, it's huge, and then you get in and there is no room. I mean,
it's like a Hummer H1. Yeah, there's a lot of like center console and real estate that's not for humans.
So you couldn't deck the passenger if you wanted. Like you could
They're
never
too far
reach
away,
them or fondle them or whatever you wanted to do to the passenger. And yet, there is no way a normal person can sit comfortably in this car. If you turn the steering wheel, you hit the
door panel and the windshield.
And the windshield and the base of the dashboard. It's just stupid. And then you're like, okay, this is dumb, and you start it, V12 sound, and first gear down, and then just to keep up with traffic, you are listening to a fucking matted, foot on the floor, screaming V12.
Always.
Always.
All you get.
I mean, if you want to talk about esperienza, which is probably not the Italian word for experience.
Esperienza.
Esperienza? I was close. I was totally guessing. I was making this shit up. If you talk about experience, that is an experience to drive that car. This much steering just to keep it in the lane.
It's an experience for the oil companies, too.
Oh, yeah. What do you think they do miles per gallon wise?
I bet it's more than 5.
For you people who are not based in the U.S., that's more than 2 million liters per 100 kilometers. Basically, you start it, you get to red line in first, shift to second, and coast to the next gas station.
Where you then put in 200 liters of fuel, or more, I guess.
I don't even know. 200, yo.
No, it's like 300 liters.
I don't know.
Anyway.
It's a lot. It can't be 300 liters.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But in the early ones, the other more amazing Lamborghini trivia, the early cars, the back seats, do you know what they were made out of?
Oh, fuel tank?
Yes, they were the fuel tank. The fuel tank had 2 scallops because, of course, it's a 4-seater, the size of a house. Why would you not make it 5?
The middle row seats, because the car also has in the luggage area, there are sideways facing seats, but it's not covered, so they're outdoor seats.
Those are for the kids who are grounded.
I guess,
when my
the ones
parents
that
were
are
grounded.
disposable and that you're okay with picking up on the highway later.
I don't think most parents think of any of their children as disposable, but I hope you don't have kids one day.
I hear you weren't a very good child, though.
I was a great kid. I never got in trouble. I saved it all for my adulthood. But yes, the back seats were scalloped into the actual fuel tank, which meant in the event of anything going wrong, you were fucking immediately incinerated. I love that. I love that car. How could you not?
That is a very endearing attribute in a family vehicle.
Every part of
It's
that
for people,
thing
for
is wrong.
parents who were not interested really in having become parents and were looking for a way out.
Let's be honest. It's just for overly emasculated, 50-year-old men who need to, or the wives who want to run over the men's sports car, because didn't that happen in what movie was that with Kathleen Turner and
War
Danny
of the
DeVito, War of the
Roses?
Roses?
Yes,
where
but
Kathleen
that was a
Turner-
Morgan.
He had a Morgan.
I think she had a Bronco or
like
something?
a lifted Bronco, and in a fight got pissed off and ran over his.
Drove over it while he was
Yeah.
inside, and he
Yeah.
had to jump out of it while she was driving over it.
That is why the LM002 was invented. Except actually not. Do you know
It's-
this story?
Yes, it was originally a military contract, like all good or all real SUVs. I think that for me, what is really important in an SUV is authenticity, like faithfulness to the mission. And in that case, the mission was to run over insurgents or whoever people were trying to be run over.
Well, you know that what is the most, so if that is the most important thing in an SUV, I shall ask you, what is the most important thing in an Italian car, and especially a Lamborghini?
The ashtray?
Fraud. There has to be some sort of fraudulent mishandling and misappropriation of funds for a Lamborghini to be truly as devilish as it appears to be. And you know the story with the M2, right?
Tell me.
So this is years ago that I did this research. Once again, we should probably do our homework before these episodes. But the LM project started out as something called a Cheetah.
Correct.
Was the original.
And it was powered by a Chrysler engine.
Chrysler engine, rear engine, hanging over the back.
That's
and they
right.
were in the process of dealing with how to keep the front end of the truck down while it was jumping dunes in the Middle East. And that was the engineering challenge they were working on. They got busted in the middle of this for having copied the whole design from AMC, I believe, and got sued over this.
Really?
So they're like, we have to solve the, with a cappuccino and a cigarette or coffee. We have to solve the problem of the front end of the car, and some lawyer comes in and no motherfucker. In fact, you're being sued out of existence because you stole the whole design from someone else. And they were like, cazzo, shit. So they abandoned the plan. They had to walk away from the whole rear engine thing. They had to walk away from the whole project. And by the way, this was a project they were doing for the American military, right? So this is for the U.S. military.
They were very desperate.
Right.
That was a desperate time.
Right. And that Cheetah went on to become front engine and became the Humvee. In the interim, now they're like, oh fuck, we've started this project. They had talked to a bunch of other militaries, because now they were probably, my guess is, not welcome to work with the U.S. government after having been sued almost out of existence.
By American Motors Company.
Right, exactly. So they started working on this next version of it and ran out of money.
Again.
So
Which they had been doing continuously since the founding of the company.
Right. Literally. Continue. You always heard the last penny drop every day at 5 o'clock. Only to go around the corner to the accountants and borrow all of the money out of the M1 project. So at the time, BMW had given Lamborghini a whole fuck ton of money to develop this M1 supercar, and Lamborghini's like, we need the money over here. So they basically stole the money from BMW and used it to finance the development of the LM002, 001, which became the 002, which then no military agency wanted,
yes.
but a bunch of sheiks in the Middle East did.
They were like, well, it was designed to jump dudes.
Yep. And look at the thing, it was badass looking, and it had a Countach V12. So they did, in fact, sell those to the public.
And they did very well in the Middle East, where people were made of oil, and then very well in the United States, where gas was
Cheap.
like 4 cents a gallon.
And they made 301, I believe.
301?
I think it was 301 was total production.
But how cool is that? I think it is just the coolest thing.
It's a fraudulent, stolen, aborted military project with a Lambo V12, a dog leg, and authentically made to jump over dunes, even though it couldn't make it from one side of a Whole Foods parking lot to the other without breaking down. That is a fucking SUV.
Compared to now, which the Lamborghini is now making an SUV again.
The Anus.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is, speaking of Volkswagen corporate projects, that is based on a Q7.
And it's the first 8-cylinder Lamborghini in a very long time.
That's also true.
It's
I
not
would
really a
be
Lamborghini engine.
Far less offended by that whole Anus project if it had a Lambo V10 or V12 in it.
Agree.
But the fact that they took the corporate 4-liter Audi, and not even the Porsche, they could have taken the Porsche V8 just to give it a little bit more, fizz. Or just, just street cred. Like you can get that. There's nothing wrong with that 4-liter V8.
It's just that thing would not have been able to compete with a naturally aspirated, high-revving 10 or 12-cylinder engine.
Even if it were slower. Can you imagine an Aventador motor in that thing?
Would be heroic. It would be epic. I think, though, that they should have just done aesthetically, like instead of trying, because everyone is making dynamically good SUVs right now, be it, Porsche or presumably the Bentley is like dynamic. I don't know.
Flippity floppity.
Really?
It's just really, it's incredibly soft. It's good, it's fast, but it's not sporty.
But everyone is sort of trying to make SUVs dynamically unterrifying to the non-car people who inevitably buy that type of vehicle. I think it would have been really cool if Lamborghini had instead really returned to the LM002 philosophy and just made something outrageous, because we've seen with stuff like the 6x6 G that like if the thing is just so outlandishly like intensely SUV as to be like
Truck.
yeah, a genuine truck, I think that would have really served Lamborghini in their effort, especially because Ferrari is entering the space too with the Purosangue or
Which
whatever.
is the biggest joke
Farce of a name, because
Right.
Purosangue means pure blood, and what could be more pure blood Ferrari than an SUV?
The best part of that is, you heard about the lawsuit last week, right? So Ferrari announces that they're going to call this thing the Purosangue, which incites laughter all over the world.
Isn't there already a car made called Purosangue? Like, doesn't
Bugatti had one, but hold on, it's so much better than that. There's a charity in Italy that owns the name, the trademark on the name Purosangue, and
So
they
if Ferrari makes a big enough
objected.
donation to the charity,
Ferrari is suing them.
for
This is the
existing
joke.
before?
This is the difference between Enzo, who would have killed them all, or had them all killed, and current corporate Ferrari. Ferrari is suing them to get use of the name Purosangue. And when you are a company like Ferrari suing a fucking charity, it doesn't really look so good for you, does it? Especially when you're trying to put the name purebred or pure blood or whatever it is on a fucking truck. I mean, come on, I couldn't make this shit up. This is like,
I am so upset about this. This is just
the
so
Ferrari truck?
insulting. Yeah, just this whole premise is just shit.
I'm upset about the Anus, the Lamborghini Anus. I think really, honestly, if it was an LM002 replacement, to your point, the whole point of Lamborghini is to be outrageous.
Yeah.
Lamborghini is not about
Would it have been
performance.
commercially successful?
Oh, yeah.
You think so?
Think about it this way. Mercedes has tried to kill the G-Wagon, and I should admit this right now. Number 2 on my list of SUVs that I would own is a G-Wagon.
Me too.
Wow. We gotta stop agreeing with me, Derek Tam.
You stop agreeing with me.
Damn you, I was here first. Ha. Anyway.
I am conceptually more vintage than you are. Spiritually.
If you look at the success of the G-Class, Mercedes has tried to kill that car every year for the last 274 years. And every year it outsells the previous year at a higher dollar transaction price. They have realized that there is no limit, apparently, to the price people will pay for that fashion statement. And it doesn't really matter how badly it drove, because let's be honest, it drove pretty badly, the previous one.
I mean, they're not that bad, especially if you compare it to a Defender or a Shed. It drives much better than a Shed.
I would say most Sheds drive better than most Defenders that I've driven. But no.
Okay,
look,
so I
it's
should have
not-
said a Shed or a Defender, not a Defender or a Shed.
It's not that bad. A Defender is so bad to drive that I wouldn't own one, but a G is bad enough to drive that it's fun. Like it's just...
I would own both.
You have owned the Defender, so that...
Yes.
And you'd still own another
I would
one?
own a V8. I wouldn't own a diesel.
Oh,
I haven't
wow.
tried a TD5. But a 4-cylinder diesel I would not.
I would want it to be as slow as possible because I'm afraid that in the parking lot, if I looked at it wrong, it would just go on its side.
Yeah.
They are
I don't know. It was perfectly fine at 70 miles an hour on the highway.
Okay.
Mine
I've only
was.
driven them around town, and I thought, no. Like, it's just, there's a level at which bad becomes fun.
And then it is superseded by terror.
Yeah, it's just no
And
no
like
fun.
risk to life and limb.
And just like you're beating some car and it doesn't want to do what you ask it to. Like the G-Class is a competent enough car that it's drivable in the real world, and can keep up with traffic. And especially the later ones with V8s, were quick enough. And I don't know.
I drove a 6-cylinder turbo diesel one, and I actually found it to be very gratifying, which I was not expecting.
I've never driven a 6. I've driven the V12, which was way too much and not really particularly good. It's not a good V12, and it wasn't a good pairing to that car. The 63 AMG cars, the new one is phenomenally fast and could probably actually drive circles around an old one that's doing like skid pad max lat. I mean, the difference in handling is night and day. And it's got a nice driving position and whatever else. But the V8s are all fine. I would like a 6-cylinder diesel or stick shift. I'd want to keep the speeds really low on the pre-stability control cars.
Mm-hmm.
They're not safe.
It's not so bad. You just have to drive it like a truck.
Yeah.
But in any case, both of us would own one of those.
Yep. And because it is what it says it is, right?
Yes, it's real, it's authentic, it's beautifully made. You could drive a class through the gaps between the panels.
Yep.
Like it's was a military contract also,
Yeah, sure.
and actually did see use in military. And so again, authenticity for SUVs for me, like a connection to something real or some kind of historical. Like God, I sound like a Luddite or something like this. But like a connection to. Yes, newsflash of the century. But if it has some kind of functional reason for existing other than being a fancy shopping trolley or something like that.
Which is the Anus.
Yes.
Right.
Or...
But then I somehow got derailed. Shock. My whole point about Lamborghini is this company exists to make outrageous machines, and it doesn't actually matter if they're fast. It doesn't really matter if they're good. What's traditionally mattered is that they make a statement.
Yes.
And an Anus makes the wrong statement. I mean, it makes
it makes a statement that you.
I want to hear the politically correct way in which you're going to put this.
Why do you think it's going to be politically correct? I think it says that you're not a car person. It says that you're a brand person.
That's all you got.
I don't know. Where were you going to go?
Gluttonous, showy,
synthetic,
superficial.
It is the vehicular incarnation of plastic surgery.
Wait until you're in your 40s and then repeat that sentence, because the older I get and the more things start to sag, I'm like, I could go for plastic surgery. But to your point, yes, you are buying.
I don't know, enthusiast plastic surgery, people who routinely have operations because it's like their shtick.
I think it's the same thing as someone who buys a fake Louis Vuitton bag because it says LV on it.
Or even a real one. People who buy real Louis Vuitton bags because they say LV. All the people who are really like luggage enthusiasts buy ones that don't have logos on them.
But here's the thing: if somebody bought a real Louis Vuitton bag, I don't have an issue with it any more than I'd have an issue with somebody buying an Aventador, because that is a true Lamborghini. So yes, it's showy, and yes, it's a
but to me, a true Louis Vuitton bag is the one that is like doesn't have logos all over it. If you buy one that has all the logos and you buy it because it has the logos because you want other people to see the logos, I would argue that is
more offensive,
in poor taste.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you, except that I totally agree with you. Period. However, at least you're buying.
Additionally,
instead of you're buying a real Lamborghini product. And you're buying a real Louis Vuitton bag. It's when you are buying a Lamborghini Anus, you are buying an Audi Q8 / Volkswagen Touareg / Porsche Cayenne corporate thing. It is a Cadillac Cimarron of modern luxury SUVs, and you are paying.
You're going to have to contextualize that Cimarron context with the discussion of the history, detailed discussion of the history of the Chevy Cavalier. Shall we do a sidebar on the history of the Chevy Cavalier?
Okay, these are the F car. F. J was this F cars. In the when I was 100 years old, back in the early 1980s, GM decided to come out with a compact car, and they called it the Chevy Cavalier, and that was the base car. I think it was a J body was the internal code, F body.
If you keep trying letters, try every letter of the alphabet.
X
eventually you'll get.
Wait. Yeah, I think it was F for fail. And it was a front-wheel drive compact 4-door or 2-door sedan with your choice of the 2.0 4-cylinder with 92 horsepower and 98 pound-feet of torque. I think it was cam and block, push rod, 2-liter 4-cylinder with a 3-speed automatic.
It's like suitable for a Jeep, a like wartime Jeep.
Yeah. or the 2.8 liter V6, later with 125 horsepower, whatever. But the Cavalier was then sold by other divisions within GM, such as Pontiac, which sold it as the initially.
Sun?
Later on, it was the Sunfire, and Sunbird, which I can never remember which one's which, but it was also at like a 1000 or something. And then Buick had a Skylark that was based on it. Don't quote me on all these names. Oldsmobile Oldsmobile, every division had one. And some fucking, I don't want to say really, really bad names, some cunt
Imbecile.
I like how you go for imbecile and I go for cunt. Some fat cat in Detroit was like, all of these people on the coasts are buying subcompact cars at very expensive pricing. And of course, he was talking about the beginnings of the Mercedes 190, and more importantly,
Saabs and
it was E21. It was the 3 Series. So all these
Yuppies.
people on the coast were buying E21
Small,
3
expensive
Series,
cars.
very small and very expensive. And he said, well, if we have a very small car, let's make a very expensive variant, and these stupid people will buy it.
Did they?
No, everyone laughed. What he didn't realize, because he was in Detroit and there were no curves and there were only just bumpy straight roads, was that there was a thing about European cars, which was that they turned and they handled. Oh, and they were engineered well and they were
well.
constructed properly. That was not something that General Motors was aware of at the time. So they literally took a Cavalier, which was the shittiest car in its segment, which consists of everyone's shittiest cars. So it was the shittiest of all the shitty cars. And they put a Cadillac badge on it and replaced a bunch of things, like later on they put flush Euro headlights on it. But like they just put like a different steering wheel in it and like very, very, very minor changes.
Superficial.
And sold it. And the Cavalier, I want to say, was like $7,000, and I'm making these numbers up, but the Cimarron was like 18. It was some outrageous price increase, and the car was a dismal failure. And Cimarron became synonymous with a company's ill-conceived attempt at badge engineering a car way past its pay grade. Toyota, for example, was able to get away with making a Camry and an ES, Lexus ES, because the Camry is engineered to such a high standard that all you have to do is put a different body in a slightly nicer interior, and it becomes appropriate.
Not a different body.
Not the original 250.
Yeah,
right?
the ES250.
Right. But the next of the ES300
Oh,
is
yes.
a slightly different
Yes.
body. And today they get away with, Camry and Avalon are the Lexus products because they're inherently good, and there's enough of a distinction and a small enough of a price increase that it's justifiable. GM didn't do that. So the Cimarron is my example for any terrible badge engineered product. And unfortunately, I think the Lamborghini, technically it's called a Urus, U-R-U-S, but it's pronounced Anus.
Do you pronounce it Urus or Urus?
I pronounce it
Anus.
douchebag. Anus. I call it, I just have a fundamental problem with a badge engineered Lamborghini. And I don't mind that the Gallardo or /Huracan and the Audi R8 are the same, because there's a difference between a trickle down concept and a trickle up concept. The Gallardo came first, and even though Audi internally did the engineering for that car, it's a Lamborghini first and Audi inherited. That's okay. You don't launch a car as an Audi and then rebadge it upscale to something else. It's my same problem with the Bentayga, which is not a real Bentley. It's got a real Bentley interior, mostly, but then there are parts that are like knurled Audi wonderful stuff that's spray painted with chrome paint and is supposed to be knurled aluminum, but is just painted plastic. I have a problem with that. So anyway, I think the Urus /Anus is a Cadillac Cimarron of the Volkswagen Group, which has become the new GM of the 1980s, who had badge engineered cars everywhere.
They're selling well?
Anus?
Yeah.
Compared to all the other Lamborghinis, yeah, it's their #1 seller. Luckily, I don't see them often, because when I do, I get very cross indeed, angry.
Don't most things make you very cross indeed? Like leaving your house?
Sunshine,
Yeah.
happiness,
Yeah.
puppies.
Oh, puppies. That's the worst.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, though. I think had Lamborghini made the Anus a true, genuine butch off-roader, it would
With
have
just
been,
like an element of absurdity about it, right? Intrinsically, it needs to be really absurd, the way the LM002 was.
yes. Okay.
Okay, so LM002 or the Lamborghini SUV, you'd have a G,
A G.
a slow G.
Slow G. It's got to be like a Kenny G song, like a slow G.
Isn't he kind of just intrinsically like that? Isn't that kind of his
That's just
brand?
That's Kenny G.
What else? There's two. Oh, I know at least one of these, which I still can't fathom, and I will never be on board with. But
I'm afraid. Which one?
I'm going to use the word apocalypse.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know what it is, but I'm waiting. I would like you to introduce this concept.
It's so shitty that I don't know what it is or care. I think it's a Suzuki Samurai.
Yes. Tin
Okay.
top.
Tin top.
I want a tin top.
Right, which like is lower down below the Vitara, or wasn't this thing sold as in some other alternative name as well, besides the Samurai?
The Geo Tracker.
Was that? Yeah.
Suzuki Sidekick, Geo Tracker.
Suzuki
so
Sidekick.
the original Suzuki I think it was the original one, was a Samurai. The original one that was sold in the US. And that was 80s, and that was very, very, very tiny. Really.
Is that
really
the one
small.
you want?
No.
Oh.
That was also available in a tin top. They're adorable. I mean, they are comically small. Recently, I was with a bunch of friends, allegedly, this is fictitious professional driver closed road stuff. You know this friend of ours, and there's a hiking path, and it had the two barriers to stop.
Yeah, the bollards.
Yeah, we call them posts in English. There are the two posts to stop people from cars from
Would you
going
like
through.
to have an insert of the Wikipedia article about bollards here so we can correct our term? But sorry,
How
finish
about
the
we
story.
have a Wikipedia entry of pretentious douchebag using very big words that no one knows, and then it can have your face. Don't be offended. I'm just kidding.
not. Carry on.
Anyway, so there were these two Ballards, and he drove right through them at 20 miles an hour because it's so narrow, it actually fits through them. Those cars are the ones that rolled over. If you looked at them sideways, they're slow. The last year was fuel injected, but I'm not really care to own one of those because of that. The bad spectrum, it gets, it's that portion of the bad spectrum where it's just no fun.
Where it's not, it's neither good nor fun, so there's no point.
The Samurai was replaced, technically supplanted, with the Sidekick, which was considerably larger and considerably more roadworthy and much quicker, but also 100% off-road vehicle in miniature form. Dead nuts reliable, very simple. They were convertibles, but you could get a hard top for the convertible, or you can get the tin top, which was a fully boxed in, basically miniature G-Class in its form, 2 doors.
Miniature G-Class.
Look at the form of it. I mean, it's just a box. It's just
Yes, I thought you meant in terms of like engineering and like durability.
I'll be honest with you, I think it's probably more durable, a Sidekick is probably more durable than a G-Class.
Durable in the Top Gear sense where they try to destroy the Toyota Hilux and they like put it underwater and put it in a building that's being destroyed. And
You snap timing belts, that's the only way those things break. They go for hundreds of thousands of miles. They offer they're like billy goats off-road because they're so small and light. They can go places G's can't go. And the reason I want one is I'd like to have something that I can hose the interior out and or use in the case of a zombie apocalypse.
This sounds a lot like the rationale that people use to justify buying shit when they don't need it. It's like, I need a car to drive on Tuesdays when it's raining, because I currently don't have a car. I have 7 cars, but none of the cars that I have are suited for use on Tuesdays when it's raining.
I will have you know that I live in a neighborhood that I'm above flood zone. However, the only road in and out of my neighborhood goes to 1 foot above sea level and is kept dry during rains and high tides with 7 pumping stations. And if the power goes out or the diesel generators fail or whatever else, I'm driving through a couple of feet of water, and none of my cars are able to do that, and that is my bullshit justification.
Or you could turn right instead of left at the bottom of the hill and go
There
around.
are still sections that go down to sea level. That whole section, the whole way. The only other alternative would be to go up and over the mountain, which I could do in a zombie apocalypse vehicle. Truthfully, the e-Golf took that place. So I needed a car that I could just leave outside and not care about. And when faced with the decision, I chose to buy an e-Golf instead of a Sidekick. But I will at some point probably own a Sidekick tin top, which was, by the way, sold as a Geo Tracker. And then that was replaced by the Jimny, if that was what you were thinking.
The what?
Suzuki Jimny?
There was also the Vitara version of this.
Suzuki Vitara, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Sidekick in the US was sold as Vitara outside the US. And then the last couple of years, I think they called it the Vitara once once the Geo died, and then they
This
made
is the thing that eventually
Vitara.
became the XL7 or whatever, right?
Yeah, it was the Grand Vitara, and
XL-7.
then became XL7. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's little. And that has a lot in common with the G and the LM in that it's, you know, really, really, really simple engineering. That's
Did you just call an LM really, really simple engineering?
it's military grade, like.
Yeah, but it's
axles.
also a quad cam V12
Okay,
and like
okay,
a ZF
yep.
dog leg and 6 Webers that all need to be kept in sync.
Okay, I was completely wrong about that. Other than the engine, but I mean
The
suspension,
powertrain.
right? The suspension is just very simple stuff. It's live axles. It's it's locking diffs. It's whatever else.
Right, okay.
So the fourth car on my list of SUVs will not surprise you either. I'm gonna get. I want the Jeopardy music playing right here.
I don't know.
Jeep, Wrangler.
Jeep, really?
I'd have a Wrangler. I'd like a TJ. I want round headlights, straight 6, 5-speed, and it's for all the same reasons. Zombie apocalypse stuff. Just it's tough. They're fun. They're 4 liters. They're fast. I mean, they're genuinely like probably quicker than they should be fast. They're tough. I mean, those engines have iron heads, for fuck's sake. They are genuinely
I'm on board
5
with
billion mile cars. So yeah, those are the only SUVs I'd want to own, and they are all trucks.
Yeah, and none currently sold except for the G, but that's not the variant you'd have.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, so if you had to choose a current G that was on sale, or current SUV, sorry.
Here's the thing. There are no truck-like SUVs really on sale right now that I can think of.
Yeah, the remains of the G, which has been redone.
And I like a lot, but that's just not in my sort of world of pricing. Here's my true feeling. I shit a lot on SUVs, and I don't think some companies should make them. I don't think Ferrari should make an SUV. But there are genuine. Is that a mouse in here, or is that?
I think somewhere it is.
If you guys hear squeaking in the background and then a big loud crunch, it's somebody stepping on the mouse that keeps running by. I'm kidding. It's a little air thingy. The SUV exists for a reason, and there are a lot of reasons why the American consumer and even the world consumer is all gravitating towards owning an SUV. And the first one is ground clearance. If you don't have to worry about potholes, breaking rims because you have suspension travel, you don't have to worry about parking barriers ripping off your bumper. You don't have to worry about bumps and heaves and anthills and small children that you run over regularly, because I've seen the way these soccer moms drive. There is a genuine benefit to an SUV over a sedan. Given that the average person pulls 0.3 G max in corners throughout their life, handling doesn't matter. None of these things matter until they roll it, flip over, and die, and then it's not a problem for them anymore.
But if they survive,
they go out and buy another SUV. And this is number 2 that feeds into why people like SUVs, is the high driving position. And the high driving position says it allows everyone to look over other cars. That's bullshit, because everything's an SUV on the road now. But what it does do is bring you further away from the pavement. And I find that people who really prefer SUVs are either very small in stature, 5'2", 5'3", and they like feeling big and tough, understandable. But also the people who are the most scared of driving. They're the people who are scared of speed, scared of driving, scared of getting in an accident, and getting high off the ground reduces the appearance of speed.
Perception of speed.
And then finally, ease of ingress and egress. My mom drives a Golf now. I just outed her to the world because I bought a set of those same 18-inch wheels that I have on my e-Golf for her Golf Wolfsburg, and put Michelin Pilot Sport 3S Pluses on them because or 3 Pluses. Because I couldn't stand the Kumos that were on her car, and one of them cracked after 2 years, but that's another story. And I think this will be probably her last car before she transitions to an SUV, just because at some point when she's in her upper 70s, it'll be easier for her to get in and out of. So there are real reasons why people have SUVs, and those are forcing the market to make these cars that
But do you think that it's that rational, that people are really making these decisions on these bases, and it's not about like coolness or like the thought that they has some capability that they might someday actually use?
So there's that's the other big benefit to the SUV, is anxiety reduction. right? The idea that I have everything I need to escape in the zombie apocalypse, by the way, that I could, I don't
go
need,
skiing.
No, but it's really like, what if? Like my sister, when she had her first kid, was like, I need 4-wheel drive. Because what if I need to get to the hospital with a sick child? I need to be able to go anywhere at any time and do anything. And I need a third row, because what if I have my kids' friends in the back? And I think the certainly American car market is really dominated by the what if. I need to have this thing that does all of these things in case I should ever encounter that. And that pushes everyone to drive SUVs. But the real reason? Did you ever see the movie Devil Wears Prada?
I did, yes.
I don't remember the lyrics, the sort of exact script or words, but there was one time where the one girl who didn't believe in fashion was in the workplace thing, and she was making fun of all these stupid fashion people for
Fashioning
about. And she got busted by, what's her name? Meryl Streep's character, who was like, oh, so you just think it's a coincidence that you're wearing a blue shirt, right? And she delivers this amazing speech about how that particular color blue exists because 4 years ago at a show, I did this and this happened and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And explain that the shitty discount bargain basement shirt that she was wearing wound up in the bargain basement because of this chain of events. I don't know or care anything about fashion, but this is the same thing in the automotive industry. SUVs exist because car companies want them to. They're more profitable because you can charge the consumer is willing to pay for that because of the what if factor and all of the other reasons. They are subject to less strict emissions and fuel economy regs. That's what it is. It's better, and they were for safety too for a long time. I don't know if they still are technically exempt from some. They're exempt from some of the rollover protection requirements too. So it's easier for a car company to build them. They don't have to worry about fuel economy nearly as much, and they can charge more for it. So they have set about making an SUV more desirable to the public, and that marketing message takes a long time, but it's fed into society and it works. Everyone wants an SUV.
Except me.
And me. I want a truck. But to answer your question, all of the SUVs on the market now are there to meet this general market demand. I would have a Mazda CX-30 because it looks great. I would have a Mazda CX-5 because it drives great and looks great. There are SUVs that I recommend to people all the time, including that. RAV4, hey, this generation looks a lot less like a jelly bean. It's a nice car to drive. There are definitely SUVs that I like. I love Range Rovers because they're authentic. But I recommend them only to the people who I think could afford the service bills. But no.
Emotionally and financially.
Yeah.
Emotionally and financially afford the service bills.
Yeah. But I think they're for a different audience, and people who want SUVs are the same people who wanted minivans, and the same people who wanted Camrys, and the same people who just want a transportation appliance that exists to quell their anxiety. And that's not what you and I suspect most of the people who are listening to this want.
So what about enthusiasts buying SUVs?
Stelvio Quadrifoglio? Yes.
Yeah, or like car people. I mean, like they probably gravitate towards trucks or like authenticity in the same way that you and I do, just through different channels. I mean, what other, like vintage Broncos, for example, or like old Jeeps, like the one that we saw at Cars and Coffee that had the Bear Attack kit in the back of it.
That's great.
So there are people who are just genuinely into trucks in general, I guess, that like go really down deep in the rabbit holes. I mean, one of the things that for me I would absolutely own, which we haven't discussed yet, is a Range Rover Classic, ideally a V8 manual two-door, which is kind of a thing that was never sold here, so you get the like cool Euro factor, and it's just kind of the original. I've always sort of gravitated towards those classics.
What is it about that car that you like?
I think it's handsome. I like just like an iconic look. I like the sort of forbidden fruitness of the three-door, although I really like the four-door ones too. It's kind of hard to put in words. I guess it's like all like emotional car purchases. It's kind of like an emotional reaction. As much as I would like to think that it wasn't because like we had one when I was growing up, it probably is. I like that it's not as, it's a little upmarket, I guess, from the sort of crude American. We had a Jeep also, but the sort of like uniquely.
Wrangler?
No, we had a Cherokee. We had a manual transmission, 2.5 liter,
2.5 liter,
four-cylinder Cherokee.
Slow.
Yeah, and went everywhere. And
But great looking. Great
yeah.
looking cars.
It was like with the plastic fender extensions, and it was burgundy with a burgundy interior with like picnic basket plaid inserts. It was very vibey. But I like the sort of like weird British Rover group, like the engine, which was used in everything, part of it too. I don't know, it's not really super rational, but the V8 manuals are kind of nice to drive in the same way that or better to drive in the same way that a V8 Defender is.
Fair enough.
But that and the G, I would say, and the LM002, of course.
So as per usual, our tastes are pretty aligned because we're looking at things that are authentic.
Truckish, yeah. I wouldn't, I mean, no, I wouldn't own a Cayenne. There's no world in which you know what, I bought the Cayenne because I couldn't afford an E63 wagon with four-wheel drive. That was really why I bought the Cayenne. I wanted an E63 wagon with four-wheel drive, but let's see, at that time they had just come out, so they were still like 100 grand, and I bought the Cayenne for 36.
Right.
So,
and you didn't lose 36 on it.
Correct.
Like you would have with the E63.
If I had bought an E63.
Yeah, I really think that the SUVs are not for us. SUVs are not for enthusiasts. A Stelvio Quadrifoglio aside, sure, a Cayenne Turbo S, sure, some of the X3, M, X4.
Yeah, but I always come back to like, I would just buy a wagon instead. Personally, I'd rather have an RS6 or an E63 if I want like truly intense, or a Quadrifoglio Giulia if I wanted the Alfa Romeo experience, but.
Because purity, right? I mean, all of those things are compromised. There's a better version of that vehicle available.
That functional like form factor or like use case, that use package like exists in some other vehicle. Even an Audi Allroad would rather have.
Right, and you don't need the things that I think traditional SUV buyers.
And if I did, then I would buy a G.
Yeah. Well, I think the lesson there is, don't be an anus, buy a LM002.
And on that bombshell.
Hold on, don't buy an anus. Either way.
I think it's Anne.